So it is my honor to introduce our next speaker. And I was thinking, how do you introduce someone who needs no introduction? Sharon has been a huge presence in our region for years. I remember Sharon at a conference in the early 2000s. It was in Langley, and she was, I think, governor elect. It was the first time I had a conversation with her because I was quite a new seroptimist, and I remember it well. Sharon has been a constant source of information, support, inspiration, and fun. Please join me in welcoming my friend who needs no introduction, Seroptimist International President Sharon Fisher.
So greetings to Governor Suzanne and the Western Canada Region team and SIA Secretary Treasurer Jackie, who we've come across a few times in the last few weeks, my fellow seroptimists and guests. It's such a pleasure to spend time with my friends and yet to meet friends in Western Canada Region. Many of you now are now the testing ground for many of my ideas to test my sanity or insanity before I share with a more critical, wider audience around the globe. I so appreciate your willingness to share opinions and perspectives and make me proud to be from Western Canada Region. This is now my 5th region conference in the last weeks, and it's wonderful to find that life is going on in spite of the current challenges. I so love the opportunity to share the work of our Seroptimist International world. I think the lack of real travel has impacted our global work in a way we could never have imagined. However, the impact is not all negative. Yes, something positive has actually come out of this pandemic, and it's rather amazing for reaching our membership and others. Take today, for example. It's a 3-continent day, as I have already this morning visited Nigeria for their event on domestic violence, with UN women speaking and a national minister from their country, one of our FGM activists, and seroptimists from Africa and beyond. And this evening, I will join Southwest Pacific for their federation meeting, but for the moment, I'm pleased to be home in Western Canada. And tomorrow morning, I will be with Zonta in Vienna before I come back to this conference. This is absolutely amazing, and why I say there are positive things happening from this nasty pandemic. The sad thing, of course, is the women and girls around the world that we care about so much need our support now more than ever. I see this and hear it every single day, so thank you for the work you do. Today, I want to share how Seroptimist International, with clubs like Western Canada Region clubs in over 120 countries across the globe, make a difference in the lives of women and girls. Our work at SI is complementary to the role of our member federations. In the case of Western Canada Region, that of course is SIA. I think of Seroptimist International as having 3 core objectives. First is to influence global policy on issues that impact women and girls. Secondly, to collect evidence and stories of our impact that contributes to the global outcomes for women and girls. And lastly, to make friends, celebrate and have fun together, learn together, create international goodwill and understanding. We have all made lifelong friends. We have expanded our acquaintances. We have met some inspiring people, and think the trip is not over yet. Imagine the possibilities ahead of us. Many of you know I started my term by inviting you all on a road trip on the virtual bus to visit women and girls around the world and hear their stories, giving us an education on the issues that are denying them their full potential. Only when we understand the issues can we find solutions and help those that are left behind. And thanks to many, we have a red bus, a caravan of buses. There's a bus in Taiwan today with a big SI emblem on the side, and it's not even a virtual bus. And recently, a club in Midwestern region came up with the wonderful yellow bus in the previous slide. I'm certain when we started this trip that few knew what I was talking about, but they all wanted to get on that bus. The road to equality is on an interesting road trip with some unexpected detours, and we still have miles to go before the trip ends in October. The most significant detour, which we could have considered a roadblock, was the global pandemic and was not on our itinerary. However, as resilient seroptimists, we managed to sneak through that roadblock and continue our journey together. We now have 5 federations in SI, with the SI African Federation joining us during the pandemic. They are busy chartering clubs, hosting webinars, and they are fully engaged. President Connie from Zimbabwe has informed us there are 17 countries in Africa with no Seroptimus clubs. So they are working on charters, and I recently attended the charter of the first club in Sudan. So now they're down to 16 countries left. They bring an interesting, fresh, new perspective to our organization. I now need to keep pandemic matches at my desk for those European and African charter ceremonies so I can light the Seroptimist International candle. I was highly embarrassed when I got invited to a chartering recently and they didn't say I had to do anything. And all of a sudden I was supposed to light the match and pass it to the camera and I had no match. So now I have to keep pandemic matches in my desk. Dressed in yellow and blue Seroptimist colors, each club has their own style of outfits, the Seroptimist uniform, and they do stand out. I'm now referred to as their best sister, and you will be too when you meet our African sisters. I'll start with the last objective first, being celebrations and gatherings. The celebration part is all that fun and celebrating that's in the DNA of a Seroptimist. Many of us long for the day when we can travel again, visit New York, meet our global friends at conventions and conferences. I'm so pleased we have the technology we do have. And while not a replacement for in-person events, the price is right, we can be together and mostly continue our work. But ladies, this is what it has come to, faces on a screen. But at least there's still wine and there should be no more jokes about drinking alone. We're way past that now. We're all planning to venture to Dublin in 2023 for an international convention. And I certainly think we will be able to travel again by then, even if it's with a vaccine passport, or as I keep saying, a chip in your forehead. President-elect Maureen Maguire and I will co-chair that convention. And then in 2027, SIA is slated to host in this federation. And at that convention, I will join you in the bar, as I will have found my way back to being an ordinary complaining member. In 4 months from now comes the really big party, or should I say, a series of parties culminating in the really big event where we will celebrate the 100th birthday of Seroptimist International. We will celebrate on October 1st to 3rd, depending on your time zone, in a virtual event. And I'm quite excited about what is coming together. And all we need to make it a success is your attendance. This is not the same event that SIA is having, but an event open to all 5 federations in over 120 countries. We will translate into 5 languages with the event offered in 2 time zones. There will be some interactive breakout sessions and much celebration throughout the event. Our aim is to showcase the internationality of SI with culture, history, celebration, program, several inspiring keynote speakers, and even the change of insignia for the incoming president. We'll set the tone to launch another 100 years. It's only going to come our way once. Early bird registration is $40 US for the entire event, or you can contribute more as a member sponsor, since we're not spending thousands of dollars to get there. I'm typically not one to ask for money. Most of you have never heard me ask for money, but I hope you will consider at least the early bird registration of $40, since we need to secure the numbers required to implement our planning before June 1st. There are some other options to support the event with member sponsorships, and our event planner is simply amazing and will not disappoint given his theater and musical background. So please spread the word, share the link with your networks. And as for 2 events back to back, I'm certain you can manage both, and I promise they will be different. And if anybody wants to lend a hand for some light committee work, please email me or ask someone in the region who knows where to find me. And thank you so, so much. I'm quite excited about the possibilities, but need to know you will be there to celebrate. And when I look at the registration list, I see that many of you have already signed up. So I thank you so much. I think we're up to something over 600 people already. So like our goal is 3,000. So we'll see how we do. We really need to see at least 2,000. So we're in pretty good shape, but we'd like half of those there in June so that we can decide the budget situation. Influencing global policy is about capitalizing on our general consultative status under ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Development Commission at the United Nations, where we as SI have a voice through written and oral statements, expressing our viewpoints on the issues we are concerned about. Our network of 22 UN representatives at 7 locations, partnerships with like-minded organizations, representation on many caucuses, major groups, and committees, and a dedicated team of volunteers that continues to grow, and with it grows the profile of Seroptimist. We have made progress in our global work and are increasingly recognized with invitations to serve on committees, panels, and being selected to deliver statements and interventions. Many deserve credit for the development of our relationships. Our UN reps work tirelessly, making connections that bear fruit. And now the task is to be certain this continues with the next SI team as we begin our transition. Just in the last few weeks, we've been invited, and I've spoken in Bangkok at the with UN Women at the Gender Equality Forum. We're recording right now with myself and the president of Rotary International and another organization for UNESCO for their 75th anniversary, where we do lots. I've got a little bit more about that later in my talk. I just noticed. SI, for SI, it's been quite a time making an impact with our work in this unwritten rule book. And I just put this slide in just for a fun thing to show what it used to be like and kind of what it's like now. I know we're more active today with increased audience than we were pre-pandemic at the global level. It can be exhausting, depressing, exhilarating, and more all in a single day. And we're going to miss the journey, but I'm looking forward to the day when we can have a full night of uninterrupted sleep at least one day a week, because my event in Vienna on Tuesday morning is at 4 a.m. I need to be on at 3:30 in order to participate. The night before last, my technical sound check was at 2 a.m. in the morning. That's the one disadvantage is time zones. We have just finished several major UN commissions and still have more events on the calendar. And as I was saying, I just finished taping a presentation for the 75th anniversary of UNESCO to be aired in June alongside the president of Rotary International. SI spoke on education, Rotary spoke on peace, and the idea was to align 3 NGOs that are like-minded that focus on UNESCO goals. So SI spoke on education, Rotary spoke on peace, and SIOF, the other organization, spoke about culture, with all 3 being pillars of UNESCO. We were also on a panel hosted by UN Women in Bangkok under the Generation Equality Forum, supported by France and Mexico. I spoke about economic empowerment of women and girls. And next week, I moderate a panel in Vienna for the Crime Commission on the criminal aspects of smuggling of migrants fleeing. And if you think you don't know anything, neither do I, but the only way you learn is to accept these invitations, do your research, ask for help, and do the job, and then you know something. Behind us, we've completed the Commission on Social Development, the Kyoto Crime Conference, UNEA, which is Environment in Nairobi, and the Commission on the Status of Women. This has been the biggest CSW so far in history. So just ask me what I do in my spare time. This year at CSW, 27,000 attendees, including some hundreds of seroptimists, attended CSW, and I know some of our own Western Canada region members participated. There are official meetings in the United Nations building with negotiations going on, and there are NGO events outside the United Nations building. The NGO event engaged 3 to 4 times more registrants than ever before, since there was no limitations on how many we could register. SI hosted or sponsored numerous events to showcase our work, with many of our members invited to sit on panels and deliver presentations with other NGOs. I know I did 2 presentations, and others on our team also presented. The other half of CSW is inside the UN, virtually, of course. There, we participate in supporting delegates to member states or countries in the negotiations more extensively this time than ever before. And to quote our policy coordinator at SI, it's commonly said at the United Nations that you know a negotiation went well when everyone is equally unhappy. The idea is that every country, every group should have to compromise an equal amount to reach a balanced, agreed outcome. This year at CSW, it was a struggle to create that balanced outcome. Over the last few years, challenges to strong language about women and girls' human rights have been mounting. In an effort to push back, seroptimists present in country delegations and working in coalition with other NGOs called for progressive language. Why is pushing for this strong language important? Because the language included in the CSW outcome document, known as the Agreed Conclusions, represents the commitments governments make to empower women and girls. And with those words, it's possible to hold governments to account for what they do and do not do. We can celebrate that efforts to regress language on human rights and the empowerment of women and girls were unsuccessful. But it's pretty sad that the only thing to celebrate is we didn't go backwards. CSW should be about securing progress for women and girls, not keeping a status quo when we know women and girls experience violence, discrimination, and oppression. We will have to start planning and advocating now if CSW 66 is going to be any better. For each UN event we registered for, we deliver oral statements and interventions or workshops. This is in addition to numerous panels, think tanks, and other events. And in addition to that, of course, we are present at club, region, and federation events to deliver this information. For global impact, the second pillar, it's the work that you do. The UN can work with member states to set policy, and the countries can make the laws, but it is the work in community that measures whether these initiatives are really achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and the problems faced by women and girls worldwide. The collective impact of grassroots work tells a story that is critical to the big picture. The United Nations knows this, the member states know this, and it is so important that you know this. Without volunteers and local advocates and project work, gender equality and human rights for all will continue to elude us. The role of women's organizations and women's movements are being recognized as vital to achieve the SDGs. Youth are playing a major role, and since they will play a role in our next 100 years, embrace them and support them as we pass the torch in the twilight of our service. And I'm happy to say we're currently working with the, what are they called? The Y20 youth group in the United States on more of a global initiative, but they're the youth group that is reporting to the G20. And so we're going to be one of the hosts for their listening tours to try and develop a document to present at the G20, which is great. Those types of relationships, we're getting more and more invitations to participate at that level. So it was really one of the goals we had for this biennium. So I'm really happy that it's bearing fruit. So now back to the bus and the road to equality. The road to equality has taken us to some scary places, places where women and girls need our global voice. I selected 6 topics that we have been advocating about since I first joined Seroptimist. They are all human rights violations. They all need to be eliminated if we are to achieve gender equality and the Sustainable Development Goals. However, talking in the big tent at the United Nations is a long way from what is happening in our local communities. The talk at the top is critical. Influencing policy is needed in order that we have laws. Advocacy is important, but to create change, you and I need to understand the issues and how our work fits into that big picture. UNFPA released a report in the last few weeks titled My Body is My Own. To put the report into perspective, imagine the following. Somewhere this morning, a little girl woke up excited about her 7th birthday, looking forward to a day of fun. That night, forever changed, she was home with her legs tied together in case of bleeding from being subjected to female genital mutilation without anesthetic in the outdoors, arranged probably by her own mother or grandmother. Hard to hear, hard to imagine. Somewhere in the world, a 12-year-old girl was unaware that today was her wedding day, as she was going to be given in marriage to a much older man in exchange for money by her own father 2 weeks before she finished her semester at school. She now will be subjected to a life of hard labor and typically could become a victim of domestic abuse and violence. After several years of domestic violence, she may run away to try and escape. However, on the road looking for safe haven, she will experience more violence simply because she is a girl. She may find refuge and be taken across a border to safety, only to discover she is now at the mercy of sex or labor traffickers who are now owed a debt. How many times can this girl be a victim of gender based violence? How will we ever achieve gender equality when all along the way our human rights are violated? How many women and girls in this world can freely say, my body is my own? Many women and girls are denied their rights, fundamental human rights, such as the choice of a partner in marriage, saying no to harmful traditional practices such as FGM, a violation of bodily integrity. Hundreds of millions of women and girls do not own their own bodies. Their lives are governed by others. 20 countries or territories have marry your rapist laws, where a man can escape criminal prosecution if he marries the woman or girl he has raped. 43 countries have no legislation addressing the issue of marital rape. More than 30 countries restrict women's right to move outside the home, and girls with disabilities are nearly 3 times more likely to be subjected to sexual violence. The denial of bodily autonomy is a violation of women and girls' fundamental human rights that reinforces inequalities and perpetuates violence arising from gender discrimination, says Dr. Canham, the executive director of UNFPA. It is nothing less than an annihilation of the spirit, and it must stop. By contrast, she says, a woman who has control over her body is more likely to be empowered in other spheres of her life. She gains not only in terms of autonomy, but also through advances in health and education, income, and safety. She is more likely to thrive, and so is her family. This is the work of the Road to Equality campaign. Working with our membership, we need to raise awareness of the realities that are not always visible to those of us living in privilege. We all have roles to play, and there is room for everyone on this mission, this road trip. We have hosted 9 webinars, one every month, with members around the world tuning in to learn to be more effective when talking to family, to friends, be it in your own neighborhood, your city, your district, your region, your country, and beyond. We can all be advocates at some level, but first, we need to know the facts, the stories, and be able to stimulate those conversations. All of these webinars are recorded and can be viewed on the website at seroptimistinternational.org under SI Voices. These webinars include expert speakers, lived experiences, and projects to set examples with many who are your fellow Seroptimist members. However, the bonus has been to see and hear from friends you are longing to interact with. We always end up having a conversation for an optional hour, with many finding that just as interesting as the main event. I invite you to visit the website and view the webinars. And of course, now we also have podcasts. Our website is full of information, blogs, photos, and stories relating to the themes of the appeal. And please sign up for the Global Voice newsletter when you visit. And our next webinar is June 10th. And we're going to have a visit from one of our partners and zero in on a very specific country. It's Global Media Campaign, so it'll be very good. Although we are talking about global issues, there is so much happening in your local communities. We have tried to shine a light on those projects that align with our global voice in order to capture the stories for examples in our global reports and statements. This includes projects relating to gender-based violence, how climate impacts women and girls, education, empowerment, health issues, poverty, and now the impact of COVID-19. We no longer work on single issues, but cross-cutting issues that impact women and girls in multiple ways. Education is a game changer, but if you're married at 12 or subjected to FGM or are a victim of abuse, or you have no money for school fees, for sanitary supplies, you will be deprived of that education. If you are escaping conflict, live in a natural where a natural disaster takes away life as you knew it, or climate change has impacted your ability to eke out a living on the ground you inhabit, you may have no choice but to pack up and leave. Migration is an area that is fraught with peril. We are just looking at a project now where migrants who are trying to get to the wealthy European countries are in refugee centers, trying to find a new life with complex rules and typically not speaking the language. They are frequently sent to a first-level detention center to be processed. All their belongings are removed for sanitation, and they have nothing. Many, after processing, move to the next level, where it might be determined they are candidates for immigration. And if so, they are finally, if they're lucky, they go to stage 3, where they are accepted in the community with assistance to get settled. Otherwise, they stay in one of these centers or get deported back to where the problems are that they were trying to escape. We have been working with Global Media Campaign with the Seroptimus 6 FGM activists, who are amazing women that are all survivors of FGM and now are activists in 5 countries in Africa working on anti-FGM campaigns, delivering the message to rural communities, community leaders, religious leaders, and really meeting those of influence and teaching them the reality of FGM. This is one of those harmful traditional practices that I think it's one of the ones that we can end by 2030. There's not a doubt in my mind. It's just getting that word out. I met Maggie O'Kane, the founder of Global Media Campaign, in Vancouver at the Women Deliver conference, and I guess we were destined to work together. I was looking for a way to engage in FGM during my biennium, so I went to a presentation with about 7 or 8 of the most active and successful anti-FGM organizations in the globe. At the end, with my UN training in mind, I was the first one to pop up with a question, which was, I am from Seroptimist International with members in 120 countries. What can we do to help? And I met Maggie and Ifra, along with almost all the others. One even said, oh, Seroptimist, you have a conference next month in Kuala Lumpur, which was her home. I just say that to know people do know who we are. After a long discussion, we both went about the conference. And later in the day, or maybe the next day, I was seated in a session and someone had taken, a late arrival had taken a seat beside me. And I didn't notice as the session went on, but when the Q&A began, this person went to the mic to ask a question. And of course, it was Maggie, at which point we looked at each other and said, oh, okay, this is destiny. We determined we were just destined to collaborate. I have visited their offices in London and I speak with her regularly. She is a force of nature, with her mind on the prize being an end to FGM. Of course, this harmful traditional practice carries on to child and forced marriage, since once you are cut, you're now ready for marriage. I have a video story to share that explains the work much better than I could, and I invite you also to go to their website. There's some outstanding work. Now I'm just going to show a short video because I wanted the girls to be able to thank you for the support to the president's appeal. So please sit back. It's only about 3 or 4 minutes. Oh, now my sound is probably too quiet. Can you hear that, Emma?
Being one of the Surpney Six is one of the best things that has happened to me in my journey as an activist. Thank you.
My name is Sadia Hussein. I'm one of the Soroptimist Six.
Zainab Haloni knows all too well what female genital mutilation can do to a woman. She is a victim of the illegal practice carried out on her against her will. Zainab had the cut as she gave birth.
Imagine undergoing labor pain and your genitalia cut off.
Your children to be the way they are. Just train your girl child the way you want her to go to. And if she listens to you, she will be perfect. Cutting her is not the solution. I'm also producing a radio drama on FGM.
Through their support, we've been able to break new grounds, radio discussions in Kono for the very first time. We've engaged with 2 women groups, each consisting of 30 women. We've engaged with stakeholders in 3 communities, and they have accepted to join the campaign to end FGM.
We achieved so much. We just want to thank you that the funding goes straight to the grassroots organizations. Without your support, we cannot achieve what we want.
I look forward to more funds. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your support.
So Global Media Campaign has been active for a little while, and they have now close to 400 activists around Africa. We took on 6 of them. So we've developed relationships with them. And I'm really quite happy with it. The region of Nigeria did an FGM webinar a while ago, and they had sought out our 2 activists there and invited them to speak. So it was what I had hoped would happen. And those 2 are now wanting to become Seroptimists because they understand the support they can have by working together. But what these girls do, they're already survivors of FGM. They're already working as activists to end FGM. And then having the support of an international organization helps them with a lot of credibility. So how this program works is there'll be, say, a week of a conference where the religious leaders, the political leaders, and so on are brought together in workshops to understand, lots of men involved, to understand what is FGM, what does it really look like? And the last, one of the last gals, the girl from Sierra Leone that was speaking, she's really a tall woman. And Maggie tells me how in a session, some of the men were trying to leave because they were almost ill from it, because they don't really know what it looks like right up close. And she would be behind them, pushing them back in their chairs and saying, no, you have to watch this. And they've had such success in countries. And the one country they're still struggling with, even though they've made ground, is Sierra Leone. And that's where Rigiatu is from. And the president has, for the first time, the words FGM have actually come out of his mouth. But he now says it would be really suicidal for him to sort of ban it completely. So he'll ease into it over 20 or 30 years. So we're going to refocus a lot of our work now into that country to see if we can't bring about the change, because they've got the movement started, and it's just going to be a slower process. And I also find it so interesting working on the global stage, because in 2009, I think when I was Federation president, I attended a conference in Southern California, and I met somebody who was the speaker there named Nina Smart, who escaped Sierra Leone and was not cut. And she has a foundation in the US now that she works on the FGM problem. And, I chatted with her and got to know her. She actually had given me a little gift, and I have it sitting on my shelf up at Whistler, and I think about her often. And that same year, I visited Midwestern region as their official visitor and met our current international director of advocacy, Bev Bucher. And then when we had our project in Sierra Leone, I put my name in, and there was a bit of a lottery for these seats. And Bev and I were the two that got drawn to go. So we got to know each other better. And the liaison on that project was someone from London named Alison Sutherland. Well, now 10 or 11 years later, I decide FGM was going to be part of my focus. Bev ends up as the director of advocacy. And she knows Nina, who is from California. And Nina has now made great strides, written books, and so on. It was just, and she's from Sierra Leone. And Rigiatu is her good friend and one of the people she works with in Sierra Leone. And then Allison, the project liaison, she's good friends with Rigiatu. So we all know each other. And the 6 degrees of separation is so true, because all of that over a 10-year period, you meet, you remember each other, you make a connection, and 10 years later, who knows what it'll bring you. So I always find that interesting to show how small this world is. It is just so small, it's scary. So the next project, whoops, got my button in the wrong place. Oh, no, that's not going to do it. Oh. The next project is in rural Kenya with the Lugari Leadership Academy. This community center for girls was funded by the President's Appeal, Road to Equality, to expand learning space needed due to COVID social distancing. With that almost completed, we will be supporting their leadership training in July, COVID permitting, bringing together 200 promising girl leadership candidates from around the country, each selected by their headmaster. This center is run by a seroptimist who ironically really lives in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, just down the road from Colleen Penrally, who got me into the trouble with Kayenga. She wanted to have coffee one day. She said, I think there's somebody you should meet. And I thought, oh gosh, I don't have time. Oh, it's Colleen. Okay, if you can come to Newport Village, I'll make time and we'll go down to Gallagher's and have a coffee. And that's where I met Kayenga. So thank you, Colleen, because it was a wonderful meeting. And we've ended up doing this project together. So Kayenga was featured in our first webinar, which is online, where she told her incredible story. In this project, they are taught about child marriage, FGM, gender-based violence, human rights, and more while attending the academy. So Kayenga herself, the founder, is a role model for these girls. Now, Kayenga was raised in that village. Her mother had the vision to keep sending her to the mission to get her education, so the father could not sell her as a child bride. And at some point, she managed to get herself to Canada when she was a young woman. And she graduated from UBC with a PhD in social services or some such thing. And her first job, I don't know if it was her first job, but one of her first jobs was in Haida Gwaii, working with Indigenous youth, reuniting them with their families from all across Canada. It was a government program. And she thought to herself, gosh, this is very similar to my own village. So she decided that, well, if I can do it here, I can do it at home. So after, getting all settled with her family in Canada for many years, she packs up and she goes back to her village and started this center. This was about 12 or so years ago. And so now she has her home in Port Coquitlam, but she spends half the year in this area and half the year in Kenya at this project. And she's done amazing things. The program redefines what it means to be a leader and harnesses the passions, ideals, and energy of young girls to make a difference in their communities and in the world. And all the ladies in blue and yellow are the Seroptimist Club, SI Eldoret, that support the project, and Kayenga is a member of that club. The purpose is to empower girls aged 14 to 18 in leadership by building the foundation and nurturing their life engagement in peace building, good governance, human rights, finances, health, media, entrepreneurship, and community connection. Upon their return home, the participants apply what they have learned to implement projects that serve needs in their communities, becoming catalysts of positive change in the society as peace builders, social innovators, and global citizens. And you'll see in the bottom left, Sherry Smith. They are also partnered with Days for Girls because menstrual hygiene is a big focus for them. So there was a lot of commonality in this project. I really liked it. We also have funded a program in rural India outside of Calcutta called Beyond Football now. Football over here is soccer, where 250 girls will come together to form soccer teams. They study together, improving their outcomes in school. And to date, none of these girls have married early. It has required some convincing of parents who are the ones who force these girls into early marriage. Some have been playing on state level teams. They all continue in school, and the teamwork, both on and off the field, has led to the success of this program. In India, even if village girls enroll in school as children, around 63% of them leave during adolescence. Almost 27% of the girls are married before the age of 18, and 70% of girls suffer abuse in different forms across the nation. These are tribal indigenous girls who are deprived of access to education, nutrition, health, and livelihood opportunities for decades. They live within social systems where parents, siblings, teachers, and community members are not supportive of their education. Far from the exposure to opportunities of growth, these girls still do not understand the meaning of having an ambition in life. Due to their social status, they often fall prey to early marriages, abuse, and trafficking. Hence, they need additional support to engage and enrich their various skills to succeed in life. They require mentors to guide their educational progress, to help them recognize their potential and continue pursuing a life promising self-respect and dignity. Ayushi Kundu in the top right-hand corner is one of the coordinators for the President's Appeal. And she visited Shrija India Beyond Football program and met the girls just last month. The young girl in the picture advised Ayushi that she was the best player on the team. Mind you, she was only 6 years old and it was her first day, so at least she had hope. So we have just started this project. It's very exciting, and I will say, on a sadder note, Ayushi herself contracted COVID-19. Of course, she's from Calcutta, and we all know what's going on in India right now. And she told me, she said, I was staying at home the whole time. All I did, she's a lawyer in Calcutta. She's 28 or 29 years old. She had to go to the courthouse to retrieve some documents. She said she was in the building for no more than 15 minutes. She came out, she came straight home, and she started feeling poorly. She was tested and she tested positive for COVID. Confined herself to her room, did nothing. And her mother started feeling poorly and her mother tested positive. And then her aunt passed away last week from COVID. Some of you will have seen that on Facebook if you're friends with her. So very sad. And, she's just so fearful. Her father has some underlying conditions and they're so concerned about him because it is difficult to get treatment. They were going to go to the hospital and the doctor said, no, don't go to the hospital, stay at home. So that's the situation if you live in India. So I'm certainly thinking about her. She's coming out of it now, but they're very closely watching the rest of the family members. And it's always sad when one of your own goes through this. It's never that real until you hear a personal story like that. We continue to receive donations, and we have a home for every penny. So we've worked with several groups to join campaigns. This included, of course, the Gender Equality Forum right here in New Westminster that we had at the start when we could actually get together and talk in one room. We cooperated with Days for Girls at the beginning of the pandemic to support the mask sewing and distribution of almost anything. We worked with Free a Girl from the Netherlands, who work in India and Nepal to rescue trafficked girls and, when possible, encourage education and entry into the legal system. And the next webinar is going to be recognizing Day of the African Child. And we are getting so close to announcing a migration project. Our two appeal coordinators, Ayushi from Calcutta, and Ayushi is a human rights lawyer, and Olga Sedenko, who has several degrees and works in the area of asylum seekers and migration. She lives in Switzerland, having immigrated from the Ukraine. And she's actually helping. Nina Smart has gone back to Romania, where she was actually spent the first 10 years of her life. And she has introduced a migration project with somebody I've come to know over the years, who used to be the program coordinator for Seroptimist International of Europe. So they've all gotten together, and now I've got Olga involved. So they're trying to put the pieces together to see what a project would look like in migration. When someone arrives as, illegally or undocumented, I guess is the word, in Europe, they can't really just send them back. So they gather them up and they send them to these, I don't know what centers, refugee centers. And of course, a lot of them try and get them to Romania because it's kind of the furthest place away. A lot of them might like to leave and then get back over to one of the more wealthy European countries, but there's quite an issue around this whole thing. So we think we can do something there and learn a bit about migration. And Nina will be on the ground. So that's very interesting, but we haven't really approved it and got the project plan. So and I want to thank everyone for the support that you've given to the appeal, your willingness to learn about these tough topics. They happen in every country around the world, including here. Every one of those issues we talked about, early marriage, FGM, trafficking, I think we're going to hear more about that. The rights of older women is a big one. People are saying, oh gosh, I never thought about, we don't do much about older women, and yet we're kind of going to be the older women. And so we want to make sure those rights are in place so that we age gracefully. We're finding that with older women, we tend to think of them as frail, unable to do anything, et cetera, when in fact, the largest contingent of volunteers is probably older women. And we know a lot of them. So we really would like to get a foothold into that age demographic. Up until just a short time ago, when the United Nations did their counting, if you use the word woman, it only included people to age 49. So the rest of them over that age were not in the demographics, and they've now changed that because of the advocacy that's been done, and we were involved in some of that. So now there's more, but still, when somebody thinks of ageism, they always think about women as, older women as frail and not capable of doing things, and it's the furthest thing from the truth. So in the road to equality, we chose to help those women and girls furthest behind first. So thanks again for the support for this appeal, for learning about barriers to gender equality that have all increased during the pandemic. I mean, it has shone a light on every crack in every system around the world, and people know it, and people are willing. If we can't make progress at this time, then it's hopeless. They say at the rate we're going, gender equality will not be with our children, our children's children. It will be the next. So 3 generations. And, things are changing all the time. So we really need to make sure that we get it right. So in closing, I will give you a final reminder to register for the Seroptimist International 100th birthday event. And I would love to answer any questions you have about Seroptimist International or UN work, anything, our relationship with the Federation. Ask it, I will answer it. Thank you very much. And Suzanne, I don't know if you want to take it from there, or whether you would like me to just...
Well, we're just waiting for Secretary Janae to unmute herself and turn her video on.
Okay. I knew there'd be a plan.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you
Hello.
so much. I am just overwhelmed with all the information that you've shared. It's amazing. Your head must be just spinning sometimes. Your passion for being on the world stage just shines so much through. And I thank you for all those stories that you shared that are teaching us about what is going on in so many fronts. I remember in Kuala Lumpur when you handed out these cards, and such a huge picture of what we are dealing with and we are so lucky here in Western Canada to have you so close at hand to help explain to us and to tell us all those avenues where we can support and can reach out. Talk about destiny of all those stories where you met the people that you actually had to, that were destined to meet to start those amazing projects in so many areas around the world. And now with the Fifth Federation, a lot of the projects are in Africa, and you have people on the ground. So I encourage all the members to watch the webinars that Sharon mentioned, attend the 100-year celebration, and to definitely go to the UN sessions, because you really, really learn a lot, and you, as Sharon says, you meet people from all over the world that you can connect with and establish those relationships and help us all to work together to meet these goals on the road to equality. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you, Janae. And I will say that
standing ovation, if we could.
Every time I speak now, I'm able to, I never say Seroptimist International or SIA, I just say Seroptimist. And I find in the last presentations I've been doing, I always include a slide for Live Your Dream and Dream It Be It. Like Live Your Dream, I did economic empowerment a few weeks ago, the one in Bangkok. So, that just speaks, so your contribution to those programs feeds right into the big picture. And with Dream It Be It, of course, for education, we're able to tweak that. And using the stats that SIA has collected, it increases the picture, when you combine with all the federations. So it's important to me to try and align all that stuff from the top to the bottom, from local to global and global to local, because we're much stronger together.
That's right. And your message about the power of an individual, I remember when you were chair of the President's Appeal for Educate to Lead in Nepal. And of course,
oh yeah, Rupa.
So Rupa, I have an update and a message. Rupa is in, for those of you that don't know, she did get some President's Appeal contributions. Her grade 6 teacher said this girl could be prime minister, and she's an orphan. And she is now in university studying humanities. Her goal to become a lawyer is still intact. So
excellent.
You can connect with her in a few years.
Oh, no, that's great. And, we still draw on those projects to feed our global work, which is always the case. And in fact, I mentioned Rupa in a session because I just remember the video I have of her where she says, I am going to be Prime Minister of Nepal. And who's to say she's not?
No, she can do it.
Yeah, that's right.